We were discussing the theory of general linear rank statistics in the previous class. We have discussed the distributions, then we also talked about the how to find out the asymptotic distribution of the general linear rank statistics. Now, using that theory, we will derive the asymptotic distribution of Mann-Whitney U statistic and the Wilcoxon rank sum statistics for two sample problems. We will show that they are actually asymptotic normal. So, this is proved in the following theorem. So, we consider that m and n tend to infinity, such that m by n goes to lambda. That means, the where capital N is equal to m plus n. That means, basically what we are saying is that it is not that abnormally one of the sample sizes becomes very large. It will be that both of them will have a fixed ratio. So, here of course, your lambda will be between 0 and 1. Then the standardized Wilcoxon statistic and similarly the standardized Mann-Whitney statistic, that is the W minus expectation W by square root variance W and U minus expectation U divided by square root variance of U. This two have limiting normal 0 1 distributions under the null hypothesis, that is theta is equal to 0. To prove this, let us consider here the definitions of this. Let me rewrite this thing. Suppose I consider T I j, that is equal to 1 if y j is greater than x I and it is equal to 0 if y j is less than or equal to x I. So, if I consider u star, that is equal to double summation T I j, then actually it is equal to m n minus u, because u was defined as the sum of sigma d I j's, where d I j was 1 when y j is less than x I. That was, it was reverse of this. We are assuming that the ties are not occurring. Then we will have expectation of T I j is equal to 1 under the null hypothesis, that is when theta is equal to 0. Let us consider, say, W star, which is based on T I j's. If we define this thing, then we will have expectation of W also equal to 0 under H naught. Okay, that is when theta is equal to 0. Now, let us consider the conditional expectation of T I j minus half given that x k is equal to x under the null hypothesis. Then it is nothing but the probability of y j greater than x I given that x k is equal to x minus half. So, we can then write expectation of T I j minus half given x k is equal to x. This is equal to 0 if k is not equal to I and it is equal to probability of y greater than x minus half if k is equal to I. Similarly, if I consider expectation of T I j minus half given y k is equal to y, then this is equal to 0 if k is not equal to j and it is equal to probability of y greater than x minus half if k is equal to j. Now, we are assuming that under the null hypothesis, that is theta is equal to 0, x and y will have the same distribution. X and y have the same distribution under H naught, that is f. So if we consider expectation of double summation Tij minus half given xk is equal to x, then that will become simply equal to, now you see here that I will get this value when k is equal to I, for all other values it will be equal to 0. So how many times that will occur when k is equal to I, that is now xk, how many xi's are there? There are n. So this will become n times 1 minus fx minus half. So this I can write like this. Similarly, if I consider expectation of double summation Tij minus half given yk is equal to y, then this is equal to m times fy minus half. You can see here this is x less than y, so that is fy, and here it is y greater than x, so it is the CDF of y, that is f. So it is 1 minus probability y less than or equal to x, so that is 1 minus fx here. Now the projection of w star we are writing it as Vp is equal to n times sigma half. So this is I is equal to 1 to m minus f of xi plus m times sigma j is equal to 1 to n f of yj minus half. So let us consider here n square root n divided by mn Vp, that is equal to square root n divided by m into sigma Vi, I is equal to 1 to m plus square root n divided by n sigma Vi star I is equal to 1 to n. What are these Vi's and Vi star? We are considering Vi and Vi star, they are uniformly distributed on the interval minus half to half. So they will have basically 0 mean and variance will become 1 by 12. So we can, now these are in the form of the summation, so we can apply the central limit theorems on the two terms on the right hand side. So basically what I have done, I have adjusted these terms here. See this particular term, because of the probability integral transform, this becomes uniform distribution f of on the interval 0 to 1, f of yj becomes uniform distribution on the interval 0 to 1. So half minus fxi becomes uniform distribution on the interval minus half to half. Similarly, f of yj minus half becomes uniform distribution on the interval minus half to half. So both of these are summations now, and we apply the central limit theorem. So applying central limit theorem on the two terms of the right hand side, what will happen? We will get square root n by m sigma Vi, I is equal to 1 to m. This will converge to 1 by root lambda z1, where z1 is following normal 0 1 by 12. And in a similar way, if we consider Vn star converging to z2 and Vn and Vn star are independent then the characteristic function of Vn plus Vn star converges to characteristic function of Z1 plus Z2. So, basically what we get then here, so root n divided by mn Vp, this will converge to, that means I am considering the sum here after adjustment here. So, this is converging to 1 by root lambda Z1 and this is converging to 1 by square root 1 minus lambda Z2. So, this is coming to 1 by root lambda Z1 plus, this means convergence and distribution, 1 by root 1 minus lambda Z2, where Z1 and Z2 are independent normal 0 1 by 12. So, if we apply the linearity property of the normal distribution, we get that root n by mn Vp converges in distribution to Z, which follows normal 0 1 by 12 lambda into 1 minus lambda. We can also talk about the asymptotic variance. So, variance of square root n by mn Vp, this will converge to 1 by 12 lambda into 1 minus lambda, and variance of square root n by mn W star, that will also converge to, that is equal to n into n plus 1 by 12 mn, that is also converging to same value, because this was just a linear combination of this thing. So, if we now use the projection theorem which I gave in the last class, let me just repeat it here, that V minus W expectation V minus W square is minimized by choosing P I star x as expectation of V given x I, and this is the projection, and expectation of V minus V p square is equal to variance of V minus variance of V p. So, we use this result here now. So, by projection theorem, and the relation 2 which I just now showed you, we get that expectation of root n by mn W star minus root n by mn Vp, this goes to 0. So, if we use the theorem which I gave for the limit part, that is, if W n has asymptotic distribution and expectation of U n minus W n square goes to 0, then U n also has a asymptotic normal distribution. So, if we use this, hence square root n by mn W star has the same limiting distribution as root n by mn Vp. So, now if we write U star minus expectation U star by square root variance of U star and apply Slutsky's theorem along with limiting normality of square root n by mn w star, we get the result. So, thus we have obtained the asymptotic distribution of the Wilcoxon rank sum statistic and the Mann-Whitney U statistics, and both are shown to be asymptotically normal. Now, in the general linear rank statistics, we are writing the statistics of the form sigma of C I A of R I. Now, in this one we may consider some sort of permutation of the ranks, or you can say permutation of the indices. Then what happens to the distribution? Our next result is regarding the distribution of the permuted form of this. So, if C1 prime, C2 prime, Cn prime is a fixed permutation of C1, C2, Cn, and A prime 1 and so on, A prime n, this is a fixed permutation of A1, A2, An, then S is equal to sigma C I A of R I is equal to 1 to n, is having the same distribution as S prime, that is equal to where the vector of ranks has uniform distribution over the set of all permutations of the numbers 1 to n. So, this is an interesting result, and it allows us to use the ranks in a, that means basically the way the data has been obtained, it will not matter when we consider the distribution of the linear rank statistics, which is based on that. Let me give the proof of this here. Since C1 prime, C2 prime etcetera, this is a permutation. So, we can write C I prime as some C of alpha I for some alpha is equal to alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha n belonging to R. So, basically this means that it is the ith value of C under permutation alpha. Similarly, we can consider A prime I as equal to A of beta I. This is for some permutation beta of the numbers 1 to n. Let us define, say, a function from R to R as phi R is equal to beta composition with R alpha inverse. Here this alpha and beta are this. So, this is actually the composition of the permutations. So, you can look at it like this, that R is a vector in R, that means it is a permutation of the numbers 1 to n. On that we apply beta from the left hand and alpha inverse from the right hand. So, here alpha and beta are fixed. As we have mentioned here that these are fixed permutations. So, for fixed permutations this result is being proved here. So, we have already fixed alpha and beta here. So, now let us consider, take any R belonging to R which is arbitrarily fixed. Okay. So S prime, that is based on I is equal to 1 to n, that is equal to sigma C alpha I A beta R I is equal to 1 to n. Why this is so? Because A prime I is equal to A of beta I. So, if I am writing R I here, then this will become beta R I here. So, this I can now write as sigma of C I A of beta R, and since I have changed here alpha I to I, that means I have taken the inverse transformation for I, then this will become alpha I inverse I is equal to 1 to n. So, this has then become equal to sigma C I A of phi I is equal to 1 to n. Hence, S prime is equal to sigma C I A of phi I is equal to 1 to n is equal to S with R replaced by phi R. Hence, S will have the same distribution as S prime. So, this we denote by this, S and S prime have the same distribution. Let us repeat the argument here. I am expressing S prime, which is sigma C I prime A prime R I, as here C I prime has become C I again, and here A prime R I becomes A of phi I here. So, you can say that it is a phi is a 1 to 1 function, because what is happening, there is R is transformed using beta and alpha inverse. So, for a given R, phi R is uniquely defined. If that is so, then basically the original combination will be preserved here for the distribution. That means, whatever probability we are saying for that particular thing, it will remain the same. As a corollary, if we consider like we are going 1 to n and then we take from the reverse side. So, if we consider the permutations which are counted from the left hand side, if we count from the right hand side, then the distributions must be the same. So, as a corollary, we have the following result, that is the sigma C I A of R I, this will have the same distribution as S prime, that is equal to sigma I is equal to 1 to n C I A of n minus R I plus 1. As a consequence, we can prove another important theorem. Let R have uniform distribution over R. That means, we are considering each permutation is equally likely. If either A of I plus A of n minus I plus 1, this is equal to a constant, say k, or C I plus C of n minus I plus 1 is a constant, then S is equal to sigma C I A of R I has a symmetric distribution about n A bar C bar. We will take both the cases, that is, firstly when A I plus A n minus I plus 1 is a constant, and secondly the case when C I plus C n minus I plus 1 is a constant. So ai plus a n minus I plus 1, that is a constant, that is equal to k. This implies sigma a of I plus a of n minus I plus 1, that is equal to n k. This implies 2 a bar is equal to k, or a bar is equal to k by 2. So a of I plus a n minus I plus 1, that is equal to twice a bar. Let me call this relation number 1. So S is equal to sigma C I a of R I. This is having the same distribution as S prime, that is equal to sigma a I C I a of n minus R I plus 1. So as a consequence, let us consider the probability of S is equal to n a bar C bar plus S. That is, probability of S prime is equal to n a bar C bar plus S. That is, probability of sigma C I a of n minus R I plus 1. This is equal to n a bar C bar plus S. This we can write as probability of sigma C I, and here we change a n minus R I plus 1 as 2 a bar minus a of R I using this relation here, because a I plus a n minus I plus 1 is equal to 2 a bar. This is equal to n a bar C bar plus S. So that is equal to probability of sigma C I a of R I, and this becomes n bar C n C bar. So twice n a bar C bar, this you bring to the left hand side. So and you take this term to the right hand side. So you get n a bar C bar minus S, which is same as saying probability of S is equal to n a bar C bar minus S. So this will prove that the distribution of S is symmetric about n a bar C bar. So we have proved this theorem for the case when a I plus a n minus I plus 1 is a constant. Now let us take the second case. Second case is C I plus C n minus I plus 1 is equal to k, which implies that C I plus C n minus I plus 1 is equal to 2 C bar. Okay. This proof will be same because we can sum over all the values. So I will get 2 k, and then since both the sums will be the same, therefore this is equal to 2 C bar, therefore that is equal to, so k is equal to 2 C bar. So now let us consider S is equal to sigma C I a of R I is equal to 1 to n. Now this we write as C of d I a of I is equal to 1 to n, where d I is the anti-rank of. So basically what we are doing is that if observation, if the ith observation has rank R I, so I will have the reverse, that is d I. That means I have changed R I by I. So what is the corresponding reverse value here? So that is called C d I. So this will then have the same distribution as sigma C of n minus d I plus 1 a of I is equal to 1 to n. So if I consider the probability of S is equal to n a bar C bar plus S, then it is equal to probability of sigma C n minus d I plus 1 A of I, that is equal to n A bar C bar plus S, that is equal to probability of 2 C bar minus C d I A of I is equal to 1 to n, that is equal to n A bar C bar plus S, that is equal to probability of sigma C d I A I. Again this term you take to the other side, so this becomes n A bar C bar minus S, that is same as saying sigma C I A of R I is equal to n A bar C bar minus S. So once again you are proving that the distribution of S is symmetric about n A bar C bar. We can actually apply this result to various statistics. So, and therefore, they can be used for the testing problems in the 2 sample testing problems. Let me give some examples. One is the called Wander-Warden statistic. Here the scores are taken as based on the CDF of the standard normal distribution, that is phi inverse I by n plus 1. So, if we consider the statistic as sigma C I phi inverse I R I divided by n plus 1, I is equal to 1 to n. So, this will be equal to sigma C I, because for m plus 1 up to n this will be 0. So, this is I is equal to 1 to m C I phi inverse R I divided by n plus 1. So, expectation of x under the null hypothesis is equal to m A bar. Actually, you can determine A bar here. See, here if we consider the property of the standard normal CDF here, that is to determine A bar, we use the fact that A of I plus A of n minus I plus 1, that is constant. See, if I write say phi inverse I by n plus 1 is equal to say some x, then this will mean that I by n plus 1 is equal to phi of x. This will mean that 1 minus I by n plus 1, that is equal to 1 minus phi of x, that is equal to phi of minus x. Okay. So, you will get minus x is equal to phi inverse of n minus I plus 1 by n plus 1. Okay. So, what do you get then? Phi inverse I by n plus 1 plus phi inverse n minus I plus 1 by n plus 1, that is equal to 0. That means, this constant is actually becoming equal to 0. This means that your A bar is 0, and therefore, you will have expectation of x under the null hypothesis, that is also 0, that is m A bar. We can also write the expression for the variance of x, that is m n by n into n plus 1 sigma I is equal to 1 to n phi inverse I by n plus 1. So, this kind of statistics are quite useful for the 2 sample testing problems. Let me also introduce the scale problem here. The two sample scale problem. Okay, so we have a random sample. Let x1, x2, xm be a random sample from the CDF fx, and y1, y2, yn be another independent random sample this is from GYX. So, our null hypothesis is whether the two distributions are identical, and alternative is that this is theta x for all x where theta is not equal to 1. So, this is basically the scale model, because I have introduced a scale parameter here. So, when you have theta is equal to 1, then the two will be same. So, that is the null hypothesis. We may also consider it in terms of the variability. So, if we consider say x square dgy, that is equal to x square dfx theta x, that is equal to 1 by theta square y square dfxy. So, that is equal to Vx by theta square. So, theta greater than 1 will imply that Vx is greater than Vy, and theta less than 1 will imply that Vx is less than Vy. So, in some sense then we can say that this testing problem is equivalent to testing which distribution has more variability, that is the distribution of x or the distribution of y. So, basically we can consider this null hypothesis as, and the alternatives will be say theta is less than 1, that means whether the variability of x's is less than the variability of the distribution of y, or theta greater than 1, that means whether the variability of x's is more than the variability of y's, or simply say that the variability of x is different from the variability of y. So, all the three alternatives can be considered here. So, some of the two sample statistics that are introduced for the scale problem, they are as follows. Let me give few of them. Certain two sample statistics for scale problems. So, here I am taking C I is equal to 1 for I is equal to 1 to m, and it is equal to 0 for I is equal to m plus 1 to n. So, when we are mixing the two samples, the first one I am assigning the value 1, and in the second one I am assigning the value 0. So, one is mood test statistic. In mood test statistic, we take the scores as I minus n plus 1 by 2 square. You can easily understand what does it represent here. It will represent that how much difference each value, basically when we put a r I. So, n plus 1 by 2 is the mean rank here. So, how much each rank is different from this one. So, this is a measure of variability of the ranks, and therefore, if I consider the statistic based on that, for example, if I write the mood statistic as sigma r I minus n plus 1 by 2 square, I is equal to 1 to m. So, basically this is the rank of xi's in the sample. So, if the ranks are closer to the mean value of all the that means the sample is well mixed up, that means x's and y's are well mixed up, and therefore it will mean that theta is closer to 1, whereas the more variability will imply that m is large. So, we can consider here expectation of that is equal to m n square minus 1 by 12, n a bar will be equal to n into n square minus 1 by 12, and variance of m is equal to m n by n into n. I am not giving the derivations here, but this can be done in a easy way. M is small is equivalent to less variability of x's, that is theta is less than 1, and m large will imply that more variability that is theta is greater than 1. So, this can be used for testing this test of hypothesis here. We can also consider another statistic which is named by several authors actually, Frand, Ansari, Bradley, David, Barton. So, if you look at this mood statistic here, it is taking the square deviations here. So, if from the square deviation we take the absolute deviations, then we get this statistic. So, these are all very natural choices for the score functions here. So, Ansari Bradley is given by sigma r I minus n plus 1 by 2, I is equal to 1 to m. Actually, there are several variations of this, that means whether you take directly like this or so. So, this one is actually Ansari Bradley choice. Let us take the case when n is odd, that means say n is equal to 2m minus 1 kind of thing. If that is so, then n a bar, that is equal to sigma modulus I minus n plus 1 by 2, that is becoming sigma I minus m, that is 2m minus 1 plus 1 by 2. So, I is equal to, that is equal to sigma m minus I plus sigma I minus m. So, I is equal to 1 to m minus 1, and this is from m plus 1 to 2m minus 1, corresponding to I is equal to m, this term becomes 0. So, if you look at this, this is becoming m into m minus 1 by 2, and this will also give the similar thing, minus m into m minus 1 by 2 plus sigma j is equal to 1 to m minus 1. So, this actually gets cancelled out. So, you simply get m into m minus 1, which is n plus 1 by 2 n minus 1 by 2, that is n square minus 1 by 4 here. So, if n a bar is this one, then we are able to get the value of expectation A, that is equal to m n square minus 1 divided by 4 n. Of course, this I have done for n odd. If n is even, say n is equal to 2m, in that case you consider n a bar, that is equal to sigma I minus 2m plus 1 by 2, that is n plus 1 by 2, I is equal to 1 to 2m. So, again we split into two parts, I is equal to 1 to m, then this is equal to 2m plus 1 by 2 minus I plus sigma I minus m, sorry 2m plus 1 by 2 for I is equal to m plus 1 to 2m. Once again we can easily simplify these terms. This becomes m into m plus 1 by 2 minus sigma I is equal to 1 to m plus sigma j is equal to 1 to m minus m by 2, that is m square, that is n square by 4. So, a bar is then equal to n by 4. So, expectation of a in this case becomes equal to mn by 4. So, variance of a can be calculated. Once again, if actually the interpretation of this is same as the Moore's statistic, because if a is large, it will mean that there is more variability in the x data, that is theta is greater than 1. So, basically we say that large a indicates theta greater than 1, small a indicates theta is less than 1. Now, some variation of this form has been given here. See, you are considering the absolute deviation here. So, and we are taking direct sum here. We can consider we may also consider a reverse form. A I is equal to n plus 1 by 2 minus, as you can see the logic behind it, that this is just a little variation from this. This form is actually called Frand-Ansari form. So, this function, let me write I is equal to 1 to m n plus 1 by 2 minus r I minus n plus 1 by 2. So, that is equal to m into n plus 1 by 2 minus basically Ansari-Bradley. So, it is just the reverse one. So, small f indicates theta greater than 1 and large f indicates theta is less than 1. Expectation of f will be m into n plus 1 by 2 minus expectation of a, and the expectation a term I have already calculated here. When n is odd, then it is m into n square minus 1 by 4 n, and when n is even, it is equal to m n by 4. There is yet another variation of this, which is called David-Bartle variation. You can consider A I as, this is the Ansari-Bradley choice, but you shift it little bit. That means basically it is the adjustment of the even and odd value. So, basically, so B is equal to sigma A of R I is equal to 1 to m, that is equal to m times n plus 2 by 2 minus the Frand-Ansari choice, that is this choice here, because if I take this minus in the bracket, then this will become the Frand-Ansari choice. Therefore, once again we can obtain, this is also the n plus 2 by 2 minus m into n plus 1 by 2 plus Ansari-Bradley choice. So, here large value of b indicates that theta is greater than 1, and of course, small b will indicate theta is less than 1. Then there is a Siegel-Tukey choice. In Siegel-Tukey choice, we take a I to be equal to 2 I if I is even. It is equal to twice I minus 1 if I is odd, for 1 less than or equal to I less than or equal to n by 2, and it is equal to 2 times n minus I plus 1 if I is even, and it is equal to twice n minus I plus 1 minus 1 if I is odd, n by 2 less than I less than or equal to n, and S is equal to sigma A of R I. This is a small n here. Small values of S indicate that theta is greater than 1. We have one final comment here, that this Mood, Frand Ansari, Ansari Bradley and David Barton, these statistics, they are more sensitive to one-sided hypothesis, that is theta greater than 1 or theta less than 1. Okay. But this Siegel-Tukey, this is more sensitive for theta not equal to. Let me briefly mention one more here, that is called the Claude's normal score. In this one we define phi inverse I by n plus 1 whole square. You can compare it with the one which I gave earlier, that was phi inverse of I by n plus 1, van der Waals statistic. In this one we had phi inverse I by n plus 1, and here you can see this is equal to phi inverse I by n plus 1 whole square here. So, the Claude's statistic is given by phi inverse R I by n plus 1 whole square, I is equal to 1 to n. I am not getting too much into detail of the working out of this. Of course, it is slightly more complicated than the van der Waals statistics, because if I take this one, I am getting the sum is equal to x square plus 1 minus x whole square. So, that is not a constant here. So, this will require some working out to get the outcome of this. In the next class, I will discuss about the Sukhatme's 2 sample test. I will discuss the null distribution of this, and we will also introduce the concept of the consistency of the statistical test. You might have seen that when we consider the parametric test. So, in the parametric test we discuss about the power of the test and the say we consider the type 1 error and the type 2 error, but in the when we consider the 2 sample test, since we are not having the form of the distribution. So, we are not using the you can say most powerful or the usual Neyman Pearson theory is not being applied here, and therefore, the test functions are based on linear rank statistics, and the exact distributions are quite complicated. So, we consider the asymptotic properties of these things. So, in the next lecture I will be discussing about the asymptotic properties of the tests here. Firstly, I will discuss about the Sukhat-Mies test, and then we will discuss about other asymptotic properties.